one. Yes, John, I can put those up again. Let me do that. So I see 1, I see 3. All right, come on, share screen, and I'll put all the questions up there. Right. Let's see, let me move my screen here, and we'll get all 9 up. Okay. All right, and then I'll just go ahead and do that. Great. So those are our 9 questions, and I'll keep an eye on the chat here, and whichever one has the most amount of votes, we'll start with that. Here we go. It's been a while since I've done a Zoom meeting where I'm doing 3 things at once. And that's come on, chat, where are you? Okay, here's more, and there's the chat. Okay, the chat doesn't want to come up for me. All right, so is it okay if I go back to the regular screen? Does everybody see the questions? All right, I'm going to go back to the chat now so I can see what's going on here. All right, so, okay, so we got 9, 4, 3. All right, so, okay. All right, well, we'll go with, all right, so 1, 3, 4, and 9. Those of you who have not chosen the question, I'll ask you to go ahead and type 1 in, either 1, 3, 4, or 9. I can put that up there if you need to see them again.
Please do.
Yes, you got it. All right. Yeah, I apologize that my chat is not coming up while I have my screen share up there at the same time. There we go. All right, so there we go. So that will come up here. All right, I see another chat there. All right, 1, 3, and 4. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do 1, 3, and 4. All right, so we're going to start with, how do I trust? Let me go ahead and go out of there. So how do I trust people who have hated me all of my life just for being alive? Okay, so that is the question. Who would like to answer that? There's no right or wrong answers. There's just honest answers. And I'm not sure. We'll see if there's anybody in this group who has felt that. I'd like to hear, what is your personal answer that how do you trust people that you feel, has hated you your entire life? Deep question, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to answer that, which means that I'm going to use up my turn for this round. So what comes up for me, people who have hated me my entire life. There was one time when I was a young boy, and we had a snow day one day. I was probably about 7 or so. And, these 3 boys from our neighborhood played with me. We were playing in the snow, we sledded. I felt like they were my best friends for that day. And when I went to the bus the next morning and I went to sit with them on the bus, they were looking very cold and very, very much like they didn't want to acknowledge my presence. And I went back to sit with them on the bus, and the bus driver stopped the entire bus, came back to the back of the bus and said, "Mike, you've got to move. There's only 3 to a seat." I said, "Well, no, it's okay. These boys here, they're my buddies. They like me. They want me here." And then one of them just turned to me and said, "No, go away. We hate you." So when I reflect on that question, I kind of think about how I kind of always felt that other males or other men always hated me. So so that was something that got really deep rooted, really lodged in there from a very young age. And I always resonated more with women most of my life, and I had trouble connecting with men. I had trouble trusting men. So how do I trust men is how I read that question. And for me, the answer is I don't know. I have to have a real conversation. I have to feel like that I'm bearing a little bit of my soul, and I have to feel like another man is sensitive enough to bear his soul. And when there's real emotion shared, that's when I tend to trust somebody that I feel might have hated me my entire life. Now I know the question, is supposed to be about, racial differences. And that's the best answer I've got for that question. So the way it works now, after somebody answers the question, they reflect on their answer and they come up with a new question. So the question is that I would like to ask, and anybody can answer now and use their turn. Have what I shared with you, did what I share with you bring up something from your childhood that you would like to share with us? Go ahead, Janelle.
Well, like you, growing up, as a younger kid, I got along with most everybody. Um, all through, grade school, everybody was pretty much cool with everybody else. But once we all hit middle school, it seemed like, yeah, well, for me anyway, big time. Anybody who had any kind of differences was like pinpointed as an odd person, or like, ooh, they're different, so they're kind of pinpointed as the person to pick on. And being a person with a disability, um I all of a sudden had a big target on my back.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that really like reminds me of that is kids um making really ignorant gestures, and making like monkey noises, because I can't control my left arm and my left leg movements too much, but making ape noises and beating their chests and doing like gross movements like that, just it's demoralizing. And um it it, it hit home, it really did. It still does. um
Yeah.
and it takes a
You're
lot
very
of,
brave to bring this up, Janelle. Thank you. Thank you for your
thanks.
vulnerability and your honesty.
It takes a lot of hard work to keep that down, and keep in mind that that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Janelle. I'm going to ask you to take a moment, reflect on that. And I'd like you to ask a new question to the group inspired by your answer.
uh
We're here with you. We're here with you.
I guess I'm not really sure.
Okay.
It's there will always be bullies.
Mm,
Um, that's just kind of the way things are. But how do we teach? You know, there were bullying campaigns and things going on in the schools, but
mhm,
I don't know if it's being successful or like
mhm.
how do we find out how successful we're being?
That's a great question. How do we find out how successful our anti-bullying efforts are? How do we find that out? Anybody else in the group can answer that. There's no right or wrong answer. Um, Feel free to explore the question, and what comes out is what comes out. So anybody can answer except me and Janelle. And that question is open to anyone else. So I'll repeat the question. How do we know how successful our efforts are with anti-bullying efforts?
Can I take a stab at that, Mike?
Absolutely. Go ahead,
So
Suzanne.
if we look at the last 4 years, I would say we haven't been very successful
Mhm.
in anti-bullying. And I wonder if the real question is, how do you get people to stop hating themselves, really? Because when you hate other people, there's something else going on, especially people you don't know. And you almost feel sorry for those people who have such deep rooted dislike for themselves and don't realize it, because there's a real problem when you can't accept other people simply because there's something different from you about them.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that relationships help if you could get to that point, because trust comes from, as you start out, getting to know somebody, getting to understand them, their vulnerabilities, and getting them to understand their own vulnerabilities, your vulnerabilities. As far as measurement goes, that I guess that's really done on a school by school basis. But when you look at all of the Black people who have been killed in the last several years for nothing more than walking, for example, and in the middle of the road, you realize that we have so far to go. There's so much hate, and it's based on such superficial things.
Mhm. Mhm. Great.
So I know you're going to ask me, what's the next question? Really?
Take a moment. Yep, take a moment and
Right.
really feel what your answer was, Suzanne. And the first thing you actually said was a question. How do we help people deal with self-hatred? Is what I heard. But I want you to be with your answer for a moment, and maybe there's a different question that comes up for you.
Right. Well, I think if we were to phrase it that way to the people who are not on this call and really need to be, it would be a turnoff. So I'm not sure. I guess I would need help with how to phrase a question so that our country, our community could be more welcoming to everyone, and realize that, there's a lot of opportunity in learning about other people who are different from you, and that disability or skin color or whatever difference it might be is no way to judge another person. It's just such an embarrassment and a stain on an individual and a country.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of in our country, the answer seems to be it's economic. If you give everybody economic opportunity, they'll start to feel better about themselves, and maybe maybe that there's truth in that.
Okay. So how do we give better economic opportunities?
Well, to me, it starts with education, and we don't have equal education throughout this country. There are many under-resourced communities, and from the very beginning, from the get-go, they're starting off on unequal footing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question I'm hearing from that is, how do we provide better education? Would you
It's a-
like, would you like that
That's a
question?
big start. I think it's a big part of the question. For whatever the reason for discrimination is, if you give people more in a young age, more information,
Mhm.
more knowledge, the ability to do more critical thinking, you're going to end up with broader minds and less brutality and discrimination.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
It's,
So I'm not looking for an answer right now, Suzanne. I'm looking for the question.
right.
What question do you want to ask this group right here?
Right. So how to foster greater interaction and
Hmm.
diversity and right in our community, because that in itself will be a form of education.
Great. That's a great question. How do we foster more inclusion? That's great. Great. So that's the question. How do we foster more inclusion? And Bruce, John, Mary Catherine, Gwynn, and Patty are still eligible to answer that question now. Go ahead, Bruce.
Something here, I guess, we talk about fostering inclusion. Really, it starts with at the top with adults being more receptive to others. I think it filters down through generations or through society, and that's also a hard way to do it because the people, as they get older, they may be set in their ways, and so they're a little harder to change. But I think that helps set the tone for the way things would be easier for other people to learn how to be more tolerant. It just seems, I'm old enough to remember, it used to be a lot more tolerance, and I don't know if it's just because of politics or what, but it just has changed the last couple of decades probably, and just that being intolerant is seen more as a virtue. It's like you can't be it's weakness if you are open to other people's ideas or something. That's been a very interesting change I've seen in my adult life. So I think the pendulum maybe just has to swing back to that. Maybe it started since January 20th. We'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a profound insight, Bruce, about, I wrote that down. Being intolerant seems more of a virtue. That's, yeah.
And I guess as one of the few old white males in this group, it's kind of people are talking about this false machismo now, how, just being somebody who just can stand on a soapbox and cry, their opinions and how they think everything's got to be their way.
Yeah.
Been more common, I think, the last couple of decades. And so that's why I say I hope the pendulum is swinging back the other way, that there should be more of an understanding of other people's perceptions and what they're going through in life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Great. Thank you, Bruce.
so my question is, what else does anybody else think about that? I don't know.
That's fine. Yeah. The other thing that came up for me is, the pendulum swinging one way. What can we do to help swing the pendulum the other way? What else? What other thoughts
What
are
can
coming
be
up?
done, or what are people doing?
Mm-hmm.
I think, we would, now that we're even having these kind of discussions, maybe a few years ago, this wouldn't have even come up in a forum like this. But of course, it got so bad the last few years, as somebody mentioned, that it's on everyone's top of their mind. Like, it's just got to be a change. It's just gotten so bad. And even the January 6th insurrection was really a watershed event, I think, for most people that didn't even consider how bad it was getting yet. So
I thought we were making some progress on bullying. Certainly they were working on it in the schools. Has so much to do with just teaching children and adults to be kind. And I just saw the last 4 years of the president using the bully pulpit of the president to bully people. And I was horrified. I was imagining being the mother of young children and trying to teach them not to bully, and then have them listening to this on national news and TV all the time. So I was very disheartened, hopeful going forward, but words matter.
So what question comes up for you, Gwen?
I
Bullying?
guess how do we bring the conversation back to where words do matter, where we hold our politicians accountable?
Go ahead, John. Yeah. Good. Great
Well-
question. Great question.
Well, I wanted to kind of capitalize off of what Gwen said. I do believe that this issue of bullying does start at the top, especially with what we've experienced over the past 4 years.
Mhm.
And sometimes it starts where the number one person in our country enabled a culture that, allowed people to talk down to people and treat people in cruel and dehumanizing ways, use volatile, kind of hostile and volatile rhetoric about various peoples, in particular people from minority groups in our country. And that culture, became prominent. It permeated through this country, and I think the number one person is supposed to set an example. Is supposed to set an example, and when it comes to character, and because it's a reflection, it's a reflection of his his behavior that caused it all to trickle down onto the rest of us. So in a way, it starts at the top. And I think if a person sets it there, then it's easy to it's about leading by example. But what was the question you, Gwen? I would just want to address Gwen. What was the question that she brought up? Because I think I might have gone a little bit off track.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Gwen.
Just that if words do matter, then how do we hold people accountable for their words?
Yes. How do we hold people accountable for their words?
I think that's a difficult one, because I think that there are a lot of people who won't hold people accountable, and might like what people, especially in particular people of power, what they say. And I think it requires a kind of more than just one person speaking out. It requires a communal effort to speak out. Maybe maybe an effort with organizations, maybe local businesses, speaking out when a person's words, especially a leader's words, are out of line. So I guess that's how I can best answer that question, but it's difficult to come up with a clear solution because not everyone is going to disagree even when somebody says something so hostile. So my question as it relates to that is, what ways can a person get the community involved when a person of power engages in bullying or improper conduct?
Okay. How do we get the community involved? And Mary Catherine or Patty, would you like to take a stab at that question?
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
I think we need good legal minds who can find an alternative to actually hold people accountable. What we've been through as a country the last 4 years, where nobody was held accountable for anything, and the majority of the country felt that the wrong things were being allowed. Companies were against what was going on, and we had no power to change anything. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a legal way to hold these people who are destroying things, hold them accountable and stop them. There's got to be a way to legally do it. Obviously, we can't count on Congress.
Right. All right. Yep. And I think I know of some legal ways we can explore, but Patty, I want you now to ask a question to close out the circle with Mary Catherine. So based on what you just said, what's your question?
I guess my question would be, how much hope do people have that things really can change in a reasonable amount of time?
Okay. That's all on you, Mary Catherine.
Just to have all the answers to solve the problems of the world. I'm pretty aware that as much as I would like to think it was one person at the top and a very small group of people who were supporting him, this is a man who still got 47% of the vote in the last presidential election. So to me, the problem is far more pervasive than I think a lot of people want to accept. That, it's not just a small core group of haters. I think my fear is that having someone at the top being so vocal about hatred allowed lots of underlying hatred. It reinforced it. I mean, I would hope having somebody at the top who is not a hater would begin to help, but my sense is we need to somehow take a deeper look at the world we live in and get a sense of why so many people backed the president that did a lot of really hateful things. And I have no idea what leads almost half of the United States to back someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I would really hope someday we can have that conversation with people who have backed that. How do we come to that common ground? So then we go back to the original question. How do we trust people who have hated us our entire lives, or that we believe hated us our entire lives? Let's take a moment and just reflect on all of this that just went down, all of what we just said. If You want to take notes too, please feel free to take notes. And then I'm just going to ask one person in this circle, to answer the original question again. How do we trust people that we feel have hated us our entire lives?
I guess thinking of it from a racial point of view,
Mhm.
Being a person of color, they have a history of being disrespected and hated, and I can't imagine how that must feel. I mean, there have been experiments where little black girls were given a choice of picking a white doll or a black doll as being the most as being the doll that they would prefer to have, and they picked the white doll. And that just tells you how important it is to what these children hear growing up and what they internalize.
Yeah.
And so I think, as far as trust goes, I think it's on us to try to act in ways and do more than just say we're sorry, although that is a good step forward. But well, I mean, I would love to sell you all on the idea of joining Diversity in Action, because our mission is to promote racial and social justice through education, conversations, and relationship building. And we do have a multicultural and multiracial group that attends our meetings, and we have conversations. So we get a little bit more of both sides to that type of question. But I really just want to thank you all for letting me join your group tonight. It's been the most interesting experience, and we would probably like to welcome all of you to be part of a dialogue circle sometime with us it would be on the issues of race. And so I'm so sorry I'm going to have to leave because I have another commitment, but thank you all so very much for being here tonight and letting me be part of this.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and we'll talk tomorrow night. And that's one of the things we were emailing about, Gwen and I, having this, a conversation like this possibly in that dialogue circle. So that's great. So we'll keep each other posted.
Thank you all and good night. I'm so sorry I'm going to miss the rest of this conversation.
No problem. We're recording it, so I'll send you the link when it's ready to go.
Wonderful. That'll be great. Thanks.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gwen. Take good care.